Hello, second grade Smarties, and welcome to Wit and Wisdom, Module 2, the American West, lesson number 14. So, we are still on a journey with Olivia Clark and her family in the book, The Journey of a Pioneer. But first, let's review the questions we are trying to answer and build our knowledge on. So, our big pizza question, our essential question is: what was life like in the West for early Americans? Our pizza slice question is: what was life like for pioneers in the early American West? And the question we are trying to answer today, our pizza bite question, is: what is the essential meaning or lesson of Journey of a Pioneer? So we are trying to think, what is the lesson that we can learn from this book and also our painting Among the Sierra Nevada, California. Now, this painting we have observed, we've noticed and wondered, we've talked about what was going on in this painting, but it's time to learn some history about this painting. This painting was created by Albert Bierstadt, and this was created a long, long time ago in the early 1900s or late 1800s. Now, this painting is unique because it is 6 feet tall and 10 feet wide. Whoa, that is about one Miss Mason and a few inches by two Miss Masons. That is crazy. So this painting was very large, and Albert Bierstadt would travel with this painting all around Europe and the United States. Now, people would pay money to see this painting. And Albert Bierstadt would hide this painting behind a curtain and would then reveal it to those who were wanting to see it in person. Now, when people saw this, they were amazed for a couple reasons. The first reason they were amazed was because of how large it was. This painting is so detailed, but so huge in real life. People were also amazed by this painting because it showed a landscape that a lot of people had never seen before. The early American West was kind of untouched. A lot of people had not seen landscapes like the landscapes in the early American West. So in this picture, you can see Albert Bierstadt's Among the Sierra Nevada in the Smithsonian. That is a museum that shows unique historical pieces of art. And here is that big curtain that he would hide the painting behind. Now, if you look right here, here are two people sitting on a bench, and the painting is behind them. This painting takes up an entire wall. It is so big. It makes me want to visit it in real life. So I want you to put your head and your brain in the place like you are seeing this in real life for the first time. How do you think people felt when they saw this painting of the mountains like this for the first time? How do you think people felt when they saw this painting for the first time? Tell me, how would you feel if you saw mountains like this for the first time? Tell me in the puzzle. If I saw this painting with a landscape that is real, I would feel shocked. I would feel amazed. I would want to see this thing. It would inspire me to go and see it. If people lived far from California where this painting shows, why might people be interested in seeing a painting like this? If people have not lived in California to see this kind of painting, why would people pay money to see it? Because it's something they've never seen before. Think of us living in Tennessee. Do we have deserts in Tennessee? No. So whenever we see pictures of deserts or we see movies with deserts, that's a place that we would like to visit, right? Because it's something we've never seen in real life before. And I want you to tell me in the Ed puzzle, what do you think might be the essential meaning of this painting. What is a lesson that you can learn from this painting? Think about if you saw mountains for the first time in your life in a painting, how would that make you feel? Tell me in the puzzle. So, the main lesson that we can learn from this painting is that the early American West was a beautiful, almost magical place that a lot of people had never seen before in the 1800s. It was untouched. That means not a lot of people had been there or seen it. So it was a unique experience to see the early American West in a painting, especially if you lived in a place that did not have these kinds of landscapes. All right, so we are continuing our journey with our book, Journey of a Pioneer. Now, this narrative nonfiction book gives us information about the Oregon Trail and a story. Now, the story is written by a girl named Olivia Clark, who wrote a diary about her family traveling from Missouri to Oregon on the Oregon Trail. Now, today we are going to be focusing on talking about the challenges that Olivia, her family, and other pioneers faced and how they responded to those challenges. What were the challenges and what did they do because of those challenges? In the Ed Puzzle, I want you to tell me what is one challenge you remember that Olivia's family faced on the Oregon Trail. Tell me in the Ed Puzzle. So, after tomorrow's lesson, we are going to be writing our informational paragraph about the challenges that pioneers faced on the Oregon Trail in the early American West. Now, we are going to be using our knowledge about the challenges and the responses to the challenges. So, when we are writing about this, we are going to need details that support our topic. Pioneers faced many challenges on the Oregon Trail. We are going to have to retell those details in the order that they happen in the story. So let's look at the first page. This was the first page of the book. I'm going to read it out loud, and I want you to think about the challenge that we learn on this page. Dear Diary, my name is Olivia Clark, and I've lived in Elk Grove, Missouri my whole life. But that's about to change. Pa heard that many farming families are moving west to Oregon Territory. They're looking for free open land and a new start. Since times are tough and our little plot of land can't produce many crops, we're leaving too. Pa told us at supper. I can't sleep. So, what is the challenge that we learned about on this page? What is the news that Pa gave to the family? He told the family that they were moving to Oregon to find free open land. How did Olivia respond to that challenge or to that problem? Because that challenge is a problem. How did she respond to it? She said in her diary that she can't sleep. So, our challenge or problem was that Olivia Clark's family is moving from Missouri to Oregon to start a new farming life in open, free territory. And she responds to that challenge by not being able to sleep. Sometimes our response to challenges are positive and sometimes they're negative. All right, let's read this page. Today we said our last goodbyes. Grandma hugged me so tight I almost stopped breathing. Ma cried when friends gave her a friendship quilt. Pa had tears in his eyes too. I wondered why everyone was so sad. Ma told me later that we might not see many of these people ever again. I didn't want to believe her, but Ma never lies. So, what is the challenge on this page? What did the family have to do before they left Missouri? Tell me in the puzzle. They had to say goodbye to their friends and family. And So that's the challenge. They had to say goodbye to their families. What were their responses to having to say goodbye? It said that Ma cried and Pa had tears in his eyes. So they responded with sadness, right? Their challenges, they had to say goodbye, and they responded to that challenge with sadness because they might not see these people ever again. We've we are moving on to some new challenges in the book. So at this point, Olivia and her family are further into the Oregon Trail. I want you to listen for the challenge on this page and how Olivia and the pioneers respond to these challenges. We've settled into a daily routine now. We wake as the sun rises. Mom makes breakfast. Pot hitches up the oxen. We pack up our things and away we go. Most of the day, we walk behind the wagon. Sometimes we pick wildflowers. We travel up to 15 miles until night falls or we fall over. So, what is the challenge that Olivia faces during the day on the trail? What is the challenge she faces during the day on the trail? Tell me in the puzzle. Most of the day, they walk behind their wagon. They walk up to 15 miles a day until night comes. How do they respond to walking 15 miles a day? What does Olivia say happens when they walk all day? Tell me in the puzzle. She tells us in her diary that they walk until nighttime or when they fall over. Imagine how tired your body would be if you were walking 15 miles a day. You would probably fall over too. We make camp when we find a spot with enough grass and water for the oxen. Pa unhitches the oxen and lets them rest. I collect dead sagebrush and dried buffalo dung for the fire and help put up our tent. Ma makes dinner. Tonight, we used a tablecloth and candles since it was Pa's birthday. For a minute, it felt a little like home. Hmm. How did Olivia's family feel about being on the trail? Hmm. What is the challenge on this page? It says, tonight we used a tablecloth and candles since it was Pa's birthday. For a minute, it felt like home. What is the challenge on this page? What challenges are they facing while they are on the trail? They're trying to make it feel a little bit like home, right? On the Oregon Trail, it did not feel like home. It said that they used tablecloth and candles to make it feel a little like home. And what were they doing? Why were they doing that? Why were they using those tablecloths and candles? Tell me in the puzzle, why were they using the tablecloth and candles? They were celebrating Pa's birthday. So the Oregon Trail did not feel like home. It was hard to feel like you were in a permanent place. But they responded to that challenge by celebrating Pa's birthday with the tablecloth and candles. June 21st, 1845. After dinner, we clear the table, wash dishes, and make beds in the tent. On special nights, Pa and others play their fiddles and harmonicas. We sing and dance under the moon. Most nights, we just want to rest. I count backward to get to sleep. It keeps me from wondering how close the howling animals are. Men take turns sitting watch to protect the camp. What is the challenge on this page? There's two challenges. What keeps Olivia from sleeping at night? Tell me in the puzzle. The howling animals keep Olivia from sleeping. Imagine that, sleeping outside in the wilderness and hearing wild animals howling in the night. So, how does Olivia respond to that challenge every night? What does she do to help herself get back to sleep? Most nights we just want to rest. I count backward to get to sleep. It keeps me from wondering how close the howling animals are. So, what does Olivia do to help herself get to sleep? Tell me in the puzzle. She says that she counts backwards to help herself fall asleep. What do the men do at nighttime? What challenge what challenge are the pioneers facing on this trail that men have to sit watch? Why do the men sit watch at the camp? Why are they doing that? Tell me in the puzzle. So the men watch over the camp to keep it safe from those wild animals. July 7th, 1845. I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. When the rivers are low, we just walk across. When the rivers are high, we wait until they are lower, and then the oxen pull the wagons across. As we cross, we watch the fast moving river currents. Yesterday, one man drowned and two wagons tipped over. The families lost everything. What is the challenge on this page? Tell me in the puzzle. The challenge is that when the rivers are low, they can walk across, but when the rivers are high, they have to pull their wagons with their oxen through that high water. And another part of the challenge is that people can lose everything. And some people died from drowning in the rivers. How does Olivia respond to that challenge? What does she say she has to do when crossing the rivers? Let me read this part again, and then I want you to tell me in the puzzle. I try to be brave when we cross rivers, but it can be cold, wet, and scary. What does Olivia have to be when they cross the rivers? Tell me in the puzzle. She tells us that she has to be brave. How do the pioneers respond to this problem? What do they have to do? They have to prepare themselves to cross those waters. Sometimes they would just wait until the rivers got lower, but it says over here that wagons were sealed with tar or pitch to prevent leaks. So they would build their wagons to be protected from that water. All right, this is a unique challenge on this page. So I want you to listen really closely to hear for the challenge and the response to the challenge. July 28th, 1845. I have seen Indians from far away a few times, but today I saw my first Indian up close. He was tall, thin, and had dark hair and skin. He wore leather and feathers. He offered us buffalo meat. Ma gave him some blankets in return. Pa traded some nails and beads for some moccasins. Indians aren't as scary as I thought they would be. So, what is the challenge on this page? I want you to think, what did Olivia and her family think about Indians before they met this Indian in real life? How did they feel about Indians? Tell me in the puzzle. Olivia tells us in the story, in her diary, that she thought they were scary. Olivia thought they were scary, and her family thought they were scary. So after meeting the Indian and realizing they weren't scary, what did Ma do to get buffalo meat? How did Ma respond to the challenge of meeting an Indian for the first time? The Indian offered her buffalo meat. So how did Ma respond to that? What did she do? Tell me in the puzzle. It said that Ma gave him some blankets in return. So they traded buffalo meat for blankets. Meals on the trail, August 3rd, 1845. Meals on the trail are different than they were back home. Most days we eat cornmeal, beans, or rice, served with bacon or dried beef. On windy or rainy days, we can't start fires, so everyone has cold meals. If Pa goes hunting, he might bring back an antelope or catch a rabbit or a bird for us to eat. When we find berries, Ma uses them to make fresh baked pies. So I want you to think, what is the challenge that we learn about this page on this page? What were the meals like on the trail? What did we learn about the food that they ate on the trail? Tell me what you heard about the food on the trail in the Ed Puzzle. It said that their meals were different. On most days, they had to eat the same thing over and over again. It said that they ate cornmeal, dried beef, rice, and beans. What happened? What could they not do on windy days? On windy or rainy days, we can't start fires. So, on the days that they could not start fires, that's a challenge. How did they respond to that challenge? What did they have to do when they couldn't start a fire? Tell me in the puzzle. They had to eat cold meals. Ugh, imagine eating cold rice or cold meat or cold. Really, think about eating cold oatmeal. I don't know if you've eaten cold oatmeal before, but it is really hard to eat. It's not something that makes you feel good inside. So, to get food, they would just have to eat those cold meals. After endless prairies, we finally reach the mountains, but climbing the steep sides is hard work. To go up, we have to lighten our load, which means dumping Ma's stove and trunk. To get down, we tie rope to a tree and then the back of the wagon. Then we slowly let out the rope. The Rocky Mountains are too steep. Luckily, we used a flat, wide path through them called South Pass. Oregon Territory is close. What is the challenge that we learn about the mountains on this page? Tell me in the puzzle. What is the challenge that Olivia's family faces on the mountains? We learned that the mountains are too steep. They're too hard to climb. So, how does Olivia's family respond to that challenge? The challenge is that the mountains are too steep. So, what does Olivia's ma do to respond to that challenge? Tell me in the puzzle. It says that to go up, they had to lighten their load by dumping Ma's stove and trunk. On the trail, we have seen births, celebrated holidays, and marked many special events. We have seen tragedy too. Some people have become very ill and died. Others have been struck by lightning, shot while hunting, drowned in river crossings, and killed by wagons and buffalo. The trail is filled with goodbyes. Today, Lizzie and her family set off on another path to a different part of Oregon Territory. I will miss her. So, what is the challenge on this page? What do we learn about that happens to some of the people on the Oregon Trail? What is the challenge? Tell me in the puzzle. Some people became ill and died. Some people have been struck by lightning, shot, drowned, killed by wagons and buffalo. How did people respond to those tragedies? What did they have to say or do when those tragedies came? It says the trail is filled with goodbyes. So pioneers responded to that tragedy by saying their goodbyes and moving on. So I want you to think about all of those challenges we just dug a little deeper about. What kind of person would you have to be to face those kinds of challenges? What would you have to be like to travel on the Oregon Trail and face those challenges? I want you to think, how would you have to feel? How would you have to live to be on the Oregon Trail? What would you have to do to face those challenges? Tell me in the puzzle. After learning about those challenges and how the pioneers responded to those challenges, you would have to be so brave. You would have to be brave to face the howling animals, the high river waters, the stampeding buffalo, meeting people you've never seen for the first time, facing illness. There were so many challenges. You would have to be so brave. But you would also have to be creative in responding to those challenges. Think about when they came to the mountains. They had to get creative by lightening their wagon so they can travel through the mountains. Think about think about what they did for food. They would have to hunt for food. They'd use cornmeal, they'd use beans. They even ate cold meals when it was rainy or windy. So the pioneers had to be brave and creative when facing these challenges. So I want you to think, what is something that you have learned that you can keep in your heart and your mind about the journey of a pioneer? What is something that you have learned that you can keep in your heart and mind from Olivia's story? Tell me in the puzzle. Something that I have learned is that sometimes I have to be brave when I am facing challenges. And sometimes I have to use that bravery to respond to those challenges in a creative way. All right. So, as I said, we are going to use those clear details that we learned about with the challenges and the response to the challenges with our writing. And Miss Mason's computer is there we go. All right. So, we are going to be writing a paragraph. My computer's thinking. Dance break while Miss Mason's computer's being funny. Okay, so we looked at those challenges and the response to the challenges to help us with our informative writing paragraph. So we are going to try to support this topic statement. Yes, Miss Mason is giving you a topic statement. And here is our topic statement. Pioneers faced many challenges on the Oregon Trail. So, with our writing, our details that support our topic statement, they have to go in order that they happened in the story. They have to have topic specific words. We have to talk about who we are writing about, where those people were, what they were doing, and why they were doing it. So, here are some sentence starters that we can use to help us support our topic statement. Olivia's family blank, and they responded by blank. So, for example, I could say Olivia's family traveled on steep mountains, and they responded by lightening their loads. I talked about Olivia's family. I talked about where they were. I talked about what they were doing and how they did it. Olivia's family traveled through steep mountains on the trail, and they responded by lightening their load. And I could even add on their wagon. Okay, I could also use this sentence starter. Pioneers had to blank because of blank. Pioneers, so I could say pioneers had to say many goodbyes because of people that had left or died from illness. So I started by talking about the response and then gave the problem. So I want you in the Ed puzzle to think of a challenge that Olivia's family faced and how they responded. I want you to complete this sentence by using topic specific words. Olivia's family blank. What was the challenge? And they responded by blank. Tomorrow, you guys are going to be writing your informative paragraph supporting this topic statement. Pioneers faced many challenges on the Oregon Trail. All right, and time to move into a deep dive. So, we are going to be talking about the word tragedy. So, this entire lesson, we were talking about challenges and how the pioneers responded to the challenges. Now, there was a word on kind of the end of the book that it talked about the word tragedy. And here are two sentences where it talked about tragedy in Olivia's journey. It says, "We have seen tragedy too. Many people have become very ill and died. So tragedy is an unfortunate event." I want you to think, what are some examples of tragedies? What are some examples of tragedies? So they talked about some different tragedies on that page. It talked about people who had become ill and died, people were struck by lightning, some people were trampled by wagons and buffalo, some people were shot while hunting, some people drowned in the rivers. So those were tragedies in the book. What are some examples of tragedies that happen in real life? Tell me in the puzzle. So examples of tragedies that happen are tornadoes. Tornadoes can destroy houses, it can destroy land, earthquakes, um, tropical storms, hurricanes, those are tragedies. We also face tragedies in our lives when we lose family members, when we lose friends, when we lose our pets. Those are examples of tragedies. Now, when we face tragedies, when we face those challenges, how do we respond or how do we feel about those tragedies? Tell me in the puzzle. Usually, when we face tragedy, we feel sadness. We feel we just feel sad, right? We feel so sad and confused. And tragedies are really hard. They're challenges that we respond to in different ways. No one responds to tragedy in the same way. In the story, it talks about the sad and scary challenges and tragedies that the pioneers faced. So, I want you to think of tragedies. Tragedies are unfortunate events. What would be the opposite of an unfortunate event? The opposite would be a fortunate event, right? It would be a happy event, a occasion. What were some examples in the book of a there were a couple, but what was an example in the book of a happy occasion? Tell me in the puzzle. What was a happy occasion in the book? So it talked about how when they would make camp, they would dance, they would play songs on their fiddles and their harmonicas. We also learned that they celebrated once they got to their new land. They also celebrated Pa's birthday, and Olivia made a new friend, Lizzie. So, when we are thinking about tragedy, we have to make sure that we are using that word in the right setting. I would not say it was a tragedy when Olivia and her mom celebrated Pa's birthday. That was not a tragedy. I would say it was a tragedy when people died on the river. That is a tragedy. It was a tragedy when blank. It was not a tragedy when people danced and sang together. So I want you to think, how could you complete these sentences? It was a tragedy when blank. What was a tragedy in the story? Tell me in the puzzle. Okay? And it was not a tragedy when blank. Tell me in the puzzle, what was an example of something that was not a tragedy in the book? All right. So when we are talking about vocabulary, we need to talk about the word, what it means, its characteristics, examples, and non examples. So this is called a Freyer model. Say Freyer model for me. A Freyer model gives us a vocabulary word in the middle. So our word was tragedy. In one corner, it tells us the definition. The definition of tragedy was an unfortunate event. Some characteristics, so words that describe tragedy are serious, sad, negative, hard, difficult, or challenging. We've talked about that all throughout this book. Tragedies are challenging, they're sad, they're hard, they're difficult, and they're serious. So, examples of tragedies would be cowboys falling from their horses. Another tragedy would be losing everything you own in the river and drowning in a river crossing. So, those are examples of tragedy. Here are examples that are not tragedies: Olivia missing Lizzie, eating and dancing at the end of the journey, walking 15 miles a day. So here's there were two challenges that were mentioned on the non-examples. Olivia missing Lizzie. That is not a tragedy. You can miss someone without it being sad, without it being a tragedy. A tragedy is something major that happens in your life that is hard to overcome. Walking 15 miles a day, that is a challenge. It's challenging, but it's not a tragedy. It is not something that is going to leave you sad for a long time. All right, Smarties. So that was our lesson for today about Journey of a Pioneer. We talked about what are the lessons that we learned from the pioneers on their journey. We learned that they had to be brave. We learned that they faced many challenges and had to find creative ways to overcome these challenges. We learned that the Oregon Trail was hard. It was difficult, and sometimes it led to tragedy. All right, Smarties, as always, keep that growth mindset. Good learners do hard things. And I will see you guys with another lesson. Happy learning.